Well, opposition parties have called Parliament to be dissolved and for early elections to be held, as you heard from the DS John Steenhuisen. But just how possible is this, given that the country is already scheduled to have elections next year? And with us is the Independent Electoral Commission's Vice Chairperson, Tselane. Terry, welcome. Good to have you here on the program.
Thank you very much, Lynn.
All right, before I get into any of that, let's talk about the actual real reason why you're here with us, is also to talk about the drive for South Africans to get their addresses down and also to register. Big weekend coming up on the 10th and 11th of March.
Absolutely. As you may be aware that we were required by the Constitutional Court to make sure that we've got addresses for every person who is on our voters roll. So we've been working on this project for quite some time, but we realized that because we are left with only about 2.8 people for whom we don't have addresses, we should actually open all our registration stations, or what we normally refer to as our voting station, in order to enable people to be able to take advantage of this opportunity.
Yeah.
So it will be an opportunity for those people for whom we don't have addresses to update their details, but also it provides an opportunity for people who have not registered as yet to register so that they are ready to participate in the elections once they are called.
Yeah. So, I mean, 2.8 million households need to be registered. It's quite a challenge. Do you think that this drive, I mean, you've just got the 10th and 11th earmarked for now. Will there be further opportunities for people to go and register as well?
Well, our focus for now is the 10th and 11th. We will be able to assess after that. I think it's also important for me to mention that by the time we started with this program, we had 16 million people for whom we did not have addresses. So since the Constitutional Court judgment, we've actually been able to move from 16 million to about 2.8 million. So it's a major achievement. Yeah. But we still want to make sure that the remaining 2.8 million people's details are captured so that we are then able to give the report to the Constitutional Court as required. We will be submitting our final report to the Constitutional Court in June.
Yeah. Remind us when this deadline actually is from the Constitutional Court.
As you may be aware again, we were given 18 months within which to collect all this. So by the end of June this year, we will be submitting our report to the Constitutional Court. So
this leads me to my question now, because we had that call yesterday from the opposition parties to dissolve Parliament, call for early elections. I mean, how likely is it that early elections can be called, seeing as though, the deadline is only in June, that you need to submit this? I mean, can elections actually be held now or before June?
Of course, it is accommodated in the Constitution. As we may be aware, Section 49 requires the Electoral Commission to be able to deliver the elections within 90 days once the Parliament has actually been dissolved. So that arrangement is there in the Constitution. And from our point of view as the Electoral Commission, we have a responsibility to deliver the elections. It is our responsibility in terms of our Chapter 9 provisions to make sure that the elections are organized, managed and delivered, and we've got to make sure that those elections are free and fair. Of course, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge in terms of making sure that all the logistical arrangements and the finances are sorted out, but I'm sure that in terms of the procurement, we'd have to talk to National Treasury and make sure that we have deviation in certain aspects. But because the Constitution does require us to be able to deliver the elections within 90 days, we would be able to do so as the Electoral Commission. But also it's important for me to mention that whereas that is what the Constitution requires, from our side in terms of the logistics, we can deliver the elections within 72 days.
Within 72 days, so you would be able to deliver elections.
Yeah,
if a decision is made, it's not going to be made today, but say it was, within 72 days, the IEC would be ready to go ahead and do elections.
Definitely.
Again, just give me clarity, though, from the Constitutional Court's ruling. What happens to those 2.8 million people that are not registered to vote? Not registered, but that don't have their addresses there. Would they still be eligible to vote?
Absolutely. We will not remove any person from the voters' roll. All the people who are on the voters' roll will participate in the elections, and they have been participating without the addresses. But the arrangement that we had made was that if you come, for instance, to the by-elections, to participate in the by-elections and you don't have an address, we give you an opportunity to give us our address. There is a form, we call it RSC1 form. it is filled at the voting station level, and then that's how we've been acquiring addresses for all the by-elections. So the issue of a person not having a voters roll does not actually rather prohibit that particular person from participating in the elections.
Yeah. Let's go back to our original conversation now, because this is really of utmost importance to all South Africans. If you have not registered, you go and register on the 10th and 11th of March. And most importantly, are those 2.8 million people that need to get their addresses. Now, when you talk about addresses, you know, there are so many people that live in informal settlements that don't necessarily have a proper address. What do they take with? What do they do?
Well, what the Constitutional Court said we must do is that in a case where you don't have a conventional address, we must have what we call sufficient particularities. In other words, sufficient particularities would be a description of where you are located or where you stay. We will take that information and be able to put it in our map, and then we fill in the form that indicates exactly where you are located. But we use that information largely to be able to locate a person within a proper voting district. So if at a later stage we were to be asked to say, how did you make a determination that this particular person is indeed in the area where they're supposed to be, we will then be able to pull out the form that would have been filled. It's almost an affidavit. We call it an affirmation statement. Okay. And that affirmation statement describes where a particular person stays, if that particular person does not have a conventional address.
Terry, we leave it there. Thank you for your time. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
I have a gut feeling you will be here before the 10th and 11th of March to remind viewers again of this utmost important moment in South Africa's history, when you must go out and you must make sure that your address is there and that you are registered to vote in the upcoming 2019 elections. You think it's 2019, it's a long way away. Believe me, it's not. It's just a couple of months, actually, which go very, very fast. Terry, thank you very, very much for being our guest here on the program. But right now, it is 8 o'clock. Let's get our news bulletin.